Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to build a full stack Boba discovery app. What the app is going to do is randomly help us find a Boba place near us. It's going to be a full stack app, so we're going to code up both the backend and the front end. Just to give you a demo of how the final product is going to look like, I'm going to go ahead and refresh this. So initially you'll just have a blank screen with the button, and once you hit the button, it's going to give you one local business near you that has Boba. It's going to give you the reviews, the rating, the address, and a few photos of that business. And if you keep on hitting the button, it's going to keep on randomly giving you a new business. So if I hit it again, I get Boba guys. If I hit it again, I get T-Penter. So as you can see, it's going to keep on giving you newer and newer businesses. Alright, and from the design point of view, it's gonna be pretty basic. So we're gonna have a React front end, which we're gonna build from scratch, and we're gonna have a Python Flask backend, which we're also gonna build from scratch. One thing to call out is the backend is gonna be talking to a Yelp API, which is gonna give us all the data about the business. In the front end, in React.js, we're going to use a library called Chakra which is going to give us a bunch of components we can use to make our app look pretty very easily. So we're going to start from the backend and then take it from there. All right, so let's get started on the backend. I am going to have it over here. So this is like the final product, but we're going to start building it from scratch. So let me go ahead and kill the server. There you go. And then we're gonna go ahead and get rid of all the code. There you go. All right, so we're gonna start from scratch totally. The first thing to do is gonna be to create, to import the packages that we're gonna be using. So the first one we're gonna be using is Flask course. What it's gonna do is let us make requests across domains. The reason we need to do that is, let's say if you're google.com and you're making a request to something from facebook.com, sometimes the backend does not allow requests coming from a different domain on the client side. So we can easily override it by using this package. It's going to be very straightforward when I go ahead and show it. So we have that, and then from Flask, we're going to import response. This is going to be the response object that our backend is going to return. And then we import Flask, which is just the framework we're using. We're going to import JSON to return our backend response in JSON. We're going to have random, which is going to be for a use case you're going to see later on. And we're going to have requests, which is going to let us make the API request to Yelp. All right, so the first thing is to create the app, which is going to be a Flask app with the name of the file. And then the next thing is we are enabling course cross-origin request. So to do that, we just have to wrap our app in the course function. And then we can go ahead and have our API key. So I'm just going to copy paste the API key. This is the API key you're going to get when you create an account with Yelp Fusion API. There you go. I'm going to go ahead and collapse the sidebar. There you go. All right, so that's our Yelp secret. And then our first endpoint that we're going to be using is called search URL, which is going to be api.yelp.com/v3/businesses/search. And then what it does is it takes a term. Term is the constant you're going to be searching for when you hit the button. So if you want to find Boba, you can define your search term as Boba. If you want to find fried chicken, it can be fried chicken. So whatever you want, it's just a search term. So in our case, we're going to do Boba. And then we have the location. This is going to be what location you want the results to be from. In our case, I'm in San Francisco, so I'm gonna put SF, which is short for San Francisco. And then you give it a limit. This is the number of businesses it's gonna return to you. And from there, we're gonna pick one randomly. So in this case, it's gonna return to us 50 businesses, and we're randomly gonna pick one. All right, and then we have our headers object, dictionary, which is gonna be our authorization header. That's gonna be a F string with bearer and then our secret. There you go. That's gonna be the header we're gonna pass to our endpoint. And now we need to design our backend endpoint. So we're just gonna have a typical get endpoint, call it Boba, and then it's gonna be get, there you go. So this is a get endpoint called /Boba, and then we are gonna enable cross origin, which is gonna let us make the request across domain. Let's just give the function a name. Let's just call it get Boba. Okay, so the first thing is gonna be, we're gonna call this endpoint and then get the list of 50 businesses. So just to show you, I'm going to show you the same request in Postman so that you can take a look at the response, and then I'm going to jump back into the code. So over here, I have the Postman request ready to go. So you can see it's the same one, businesses / the only thing it doesn't have is the limit, which we can just add over here. And we have the authorization header set to the secret key. So if I send it, so this is what the response is going to be, which is going to be an object with the businesses key. Businesses is an array, and it is an array of 50 businesses. Each business will have an ID, alias, name, and other details, rating, price, and other details related to that business. So we can make a request to this endpoint, get the businesses list, and then choose one business randomly. So that would be the first step. So let's do that. Okay, so we're gonna have businesses, and then we're gonna actually make the get request to our search URL, and we'll give it the headers, which is gonna be headers. This will make the request and get the response. We wanna parse the response and change it to JSON. Okay, so this is gonna store the array of businesses in the variable businesses. The next step is to choose one random business from this array. So to do that, what we could do is we could have something like random business ID, and then we can use the random package .choice. What random.choice does is it takes in an array, it can be any sequence, and gives you randomly one element from that. In our case, we're going to give it that businesses array and then tell it to give us one random business from that array of 50. This should give us one random, and from that random business, we're going to get the ID. So at this point, we should have the ID of that business. And with that ID, what we could do is we could hit another endpoint of another Yelp endpoint, which is going to give us a lot more details for that given business ID. So over here, you can see we get a decent amount of information, but we don't get like a ton of information, like the photos of a business and other stuff. So especially to get the photos, we need to call the other endpoint. So let's do that. All right, so we have the ID, and then now it's going to be the business data, which is going to be data related to that business. Same thing, we're going to do request.get, and then here's where our URL is going to be. We're going to do api.yelp.com v3, and now we're going to do the businesses endpoint again. But this time we're just going to give it our business ID. So the previous one was a search, which gave you all the Boba places around you. And then this is going to be just all information particular to the ID that you're passing. And then similarly, we're just going to turn it into JSON. So this should parse it in JSON. And then lastly, we will return the data. So we can do response equals app.response class. And then our response is gonna be, let's see, our response is gonna be the JSON version of our business data. We're gonna default it to string. What this means is when the JSON package is gonna try and convert our business data object into a JSON object, any field that it cannot encode properly, it's going to default to a string. So this is a pretty basic thing to put there. I'm pretty sure it's going to work without this too, but it's just a safety mechanism in case the encoding decoding acts weird. So that's our response. We're going to give it a status code of 200, and then we'll give it a MIME type of application JSON. There you go. And then we're just going to return the response. All right, we're just going to put a print here to make sure we're hitting the backend correctly. And now let's go ahead and call it. Oops. Oh, well, I think we have to run our backend application. So that's going to be app.run. This is going to kick off the whole process. All right, there you go. All right, so you have the backend running at 5,000 and our endpoint is called Boba. So let's try hitting it from Postman to see what we're getting. So I have it over here. So you see we have here HTTP 127.0.0.1.5,000. So we have 127.0.0.1.5,000. Our endpoint is /Boba, and we have /Boba over here. So if we hit it, we're running into an internal error. So let's see, what are we getting? Decorator missing one required positional argument F. So where are we getting this error from? Let's go ahead and check that. All right, let's see. This should, so we have our F string. Where do we have, oh, I see. So it should be over here. Oh, there you go. So our cross origin decorator, we need to put this over here. Let's reset the server. Hit it from the back end. We're still getting the same thing. Let's see. Oh, okay, so it's a different one now. We're getting key error, random business ID. So let's go and see what's happening over there. Right. So when we're getting our first response, remember we were getting the array was in a key called businesses, so we're not indexing into that over here. So we're gonna get businesses. All right, that should do it. We're gonna reset the server. Validation authorization is a required parameter. Huh. Let's see. Authorization is a required parameter. That should not be the case. So let's see what's happening. Hello backend, we're getting it. Right. So we are not passing in the headers, I believe, to the second one. All right. Hopefully third time is the charm. All right, there you go. So the backend is returning to us the one Boba please. It has the ID, the name, image URL, categories, the number of reviews, the rating. It has the location too, and it also has the photos over here. It also has the coordinates in case you want to show it on a map. So there's a lot of information here to play with. All right, so that takes care of our backend. So now we have a working backend over here. The next step is gonna be the front end. So I'm gonna jump to another VS Code window for the front end. All right, so just bear with me. I might edit this part out, but if not, feel free to go forward a few seconds. So we know this is working, so we're just gonna move this over here. So let's just get rid of this. All right, so we'll have the backend running in the background. And what I want to do is show you the React app from scratch. So let me try doing that. Give me 1 second. So what we're going to do is go ahead and there you go. So the first thing we're going to do is open our front-end code. So we could just do code, Yelp discovery, Yelp Boba discovery. All right, this should be our front-end code. All right, so I'll have this open in the background to the left so that I can use it for reference. And we're gonna do it from scratch over here. So we'll just go to prod demo, and then let's just create a React app using the create React app. And then we're gonna call it Yelp Boba discovery alive. All right, so this is gonna go ahead and create the app for us. And once it creates the app, the first thing is gonna be, we're gonna install the packages that we need, and we're gonna get rid of any boilerplate files that we don't need. Because when you create an app using the create React app CLI tool, it gives you a bunch of files that you don't really need, at least for a quick prototype. So I think it's going to be a good way to show you how to build something from scratch rather than just me showing you the already built code. So we'll give it a few minutes. Feel free to just go skip a few seconds ahead if you don't feel like waiting. So, all right, so it's gonna do its thing. It downloads like a bunch of dependencies that React needs to work properly. So it takes a bit to go ahead and do all those, but it should be done. I think we're on the last step now. So while this is going on, I'm going to show you the front-end package that we're going to be using. So we're just going to get over here. So this should be broken now, or is it working? Right, because our backend is still working, right? Okay. So we are gonna go ahead and kill our front end. All right, so this should kill our front end. Let's try building it. It's still working. Why is it still working? Oh, right. All right, just bear with me. So we're gonna have this running, and then we're gonna kill it over here. Perfect. This should be broken now. Nice. And okay, so showing you the front-end package we're gonna be using. It's called Chakra Ui. So this gives you a lot of packages, components that you can use to make everything look pretty, much pretty. So I think it's gonna be a good way to have a working version of the app. All right, so now let's see. Our iTerm, what the hell's iTerm? There we go. All right, so happy hacking. So our app is ready. Let's have our app. Oh, right. So if we have Yelp Boba discovery. All right, so there you go. So this is the file that, this is the folder that got generated. So we're gonna expand everything. Okay, so we have a bunch of files. Let's go and see what we need, what we don't. We don't need setup tests, so we're gonna go ahead and delete it. We don't need report web vitals, so we're gonna go ahead and delete that. We need the index file. We don't need the app.test. We need these, and then we have all these over here. Okay, I think that can be a good starting ground. We also don't need the logo. All right, so we're gonna get rid of the logo. Let's get rid of this whole thing, and then let's just have a p tag here saying hello world. And then index.js, we don't need this, we don't need this. All right, so now we just have an index.js and an app.js, so pretty basic. Let's go ahead and kick this off. Npm start. So this is going to start the React app, and we should see hello world. Put it over here. Give it, oh, all right, there you go. So we have hello world over here. So that's a good starting point. Now let's get started with the design. Right, so we have it over. Okay, so just to make it simple, we're gonna have everything in this app function, app component, just to make things easier. So the first thing we want to do is actually import our Chakra UI. So we're just gonna do a npm install on Chakra UI. So you can literally just copy paste the command from here to do that. All right, we're gonna let it do its thing. It's just gonna go ahead and download the package. And then you have only one step to set it up, and then you can just start using the code. So we're gonna wait for the package to install. And while it does, we're just gonna, so over here, let me just put it over here. So in getting started, after installing, you have to set the provider over here. So what that essentially means is you need to import this. So the package is done. So we want to just import the Chakra provider. And then what you have to do is just wrap your, so return, we just wrap it in that provider. There we go. This should be working now. We're gonna start it off. All right. Okay, so this should be finished loading. All right, there you go. So we have it working here. Now let's start writing the actual code. Okay, so if you saw the UI, we had the heading, and then we had the button, and then we had all the data. So let's get that layout started. So the first thing is the imports that we will need. So we're gonna need a bunch of imports from Chakra, so let's do that. So we're gonna have a center component, we're gonna have a button, we're gonna have a heading, we're gonna give a v-stack, that's pretty much a vertical stack so that you have all components vertically stacked on top of each other. We have a horizontal stack, you just have components horizontally stacked. We have a text component, we have an image, and we have a link. And all these are gonna come from Chakra UI React. There you go. And then we need the React packages, of course. So we need use state, and then we need React. All right, there you go. So this should be all the packages that we're gonna be needing. Okay, so the first thing is to store the information we're gonna get from the backend. We are gonna have a state called Boba info. Set Boba info, and we're gonna have a use state, which is initially gonna be an just null. That should do it. There you go. All right, so this should be the only state we need. And now let me go to the front end code, as in the UI. So let's get rid of hello world. We're gonna have a center component. This is gonna be like a div, but it's all automatically gonna be centered. We're gonna give it a background of pink. And then we're gonna give the font color as white. And we're just gonna give it some generous padding to make it look pretty. And then let's just put our text within this. And then if I go ahead and show you what we have, There you go. We have hello world. So you see, like, using the center component, you don't have to do alignment CSS. It's very simple. Whatever you have inside that center component is going to be centered in your UI. All right, so there's that. And then within that center, we're going to have our heading, which is going to be Boba Discovery App. And we're going to give it a padding of, let's say, 4. Right? And then below the heading, what did we have? We had the button, right? So we had the button. Let's just say find Boba, and let's see what we have. All right, so you see we have Boba Discovery App, and then we have find Boba beside each other. But what we want is they need to be vertically stacked. So we have the heading and then the button. So for that, we could use something called a VStack. And then let's close the VStack. There you go. And then we can put our heading and our button inside the VStack. So now we have something like this. Very simple. We have vertical stack, and within that, every element you put is going to be vertically stacked on top of each other. So we have the heading and then the button. So the next step is going to be styling the button a bit, just to make it look pretty again. So we're going to give it a large size. We're going to give the font color black. And we need the onClick function, but we're going to come back to that later on. So right now we can just put a placeholder, and we can define a function over here that we're going to implement at the end. So we can have something like find Boba, which is going to be, this is the function that's going to call our argument. So right now we can just do return null. Actually, we can just do, yep, I think return null should be good here. And then on click, it's going to be just that function. All right, so now we have the button kind of have it working. So we have it over here, and we have the button clickable. All right, so now it's gonna be actually calling the endpoint. So we're gonna go to our find Boba over here. And then what I'm gonna do here is call our endpoint. So we're gonna do a fetch. It's gonna be to HTTP. And our backend is running at 127.0.1 and port 5000. And we had that /Boba endpoint. And then we're going to have a then, which is going to take the response and just change it to a JSON. And then we're going to have another then, which takes in the JSON data and sets our state to that object. So remember what our backend was returning. Let me show you over here. So essentially what the front end is doing is calling this endpoint, getting this object, and then putting that in our local state. That's pretty much all it's doing. All right, so we're gonna put it over here. Okay, so now that we have the button of fetching the data, let's actually go ahead and create the UI elements where we're going to actually show the data. So below the button, what we're going to do is we're going to say that if there is Boba info, which is our state, initially it's going to be null, so we won't have anything there. So we're going to say if it is not equals to null, then have this following components. So what's happening is initially, let me just have it do this. So let's just have hello data. Oh, nope. So we can do hello data is there. Okay. So let's see what happens. There you go. So right now we don't see the text we wrote there, but when we click find Boba, it should make the backend call, get the data, set it to our state, which is going to be that Boba info variable. The Boba info variable over here, this is going to be not equals to null. So we're going to start seeing this, of course, if this works properly. So let's hit it. And once we hit it, we see that the data is there. So we know that works. Now let's actually render the data, right? All right, so we're gonna have something similar. So let's get rid of the P over here. And then let's just have our parentheses. Okay, there you go. All right, so the first thing is the obvious thing again. So we have a center element. This is gonna be at the center. We're gonna give it some style. And within that, what do we need? So let's just put a V stack because everything is gonna be vertically aligned. For the center element, we're just gonna give it a background of pink again. And then we're gonna have the width set to 100%. We're gonna give the font a white color. And we're gonna give it some generous padding. There you go. Now the VStack. So within the VStack, we want all our data. So the first thing is gonna be the image. So we're gonna have an image tag. There you go. The image is gonna have all the attributes. So what are the attributes? So we're gonna have a source. That's the image URL, which is gonna be the Boba info. We're gonna be image URL. So if you look at the backend over here, this is what our state is gonna be. So image URL is what we want. All right, so we have our image URL and then a few other things to make it look pretty. So we can give it an alt text. We give it a size. So it's gonna be box size. Just make sure it's a square, the data. We're just gonna give it 400 pixel. And then object fit equals cover. You'll maintain the aspect ratio. So I'll just keep that and see what do we have, right? All right, there you go. So if I hit find Boba, I get the image. So now let's go and have all the other data. So we have the image. Below the image, we want the name, right? So the name is gonna be in a heading. And it's gonna be Boba info, and then just a name, I believe, yeah. So it's gonna be the name. There you go. And then, okay, so now it should be the name. Let's see if we're getting it correctly. There you go, we're getting it. But we want this to be clickable so that it takes us to the Yelp page if someone clicks on it. So for that, we need a link object, component. I keep on saying object. There you go. All right. And for the link object, we need to give it a href. And the href is gonna be where it's going to, right? So it's gonna be Boba info. And then for Boba info, we're gonna give it the URL. This is an external, so we can just go ahead and say it's external. So it's gonna open it in a new tab. All right, so now we have that. The next thing is gonna be, after the link, we will have a horizontal stack. And within the horizontal stack, we're gonna have the two text. One is gonna be for the reviews, another is gonna be for the rating, right? So for both, I can give it a font size. Let's just give it 3XL. Let's copy this for the other one. And then for the text itself, it should give me the number of reviews, which is going to be the review count. And then we have the static text reviews. And then similarly over here, we're going to have the rating and then the text rating. All right. And then the horizontal stack, you can say how much space there's going to be between elements within the horizontal stack. So we can give a spacing of, let's say 24. All right, so now let's see, what are we getting? Okay. So find Boba. We get hot tea, and then we have 27 reviews, 4 rating. If we click on it, It takes you... right, so let me open this in Chrome. That should be better. So we have this over here. There you go. It should take us over there, and let's also just keep developing in Chrome because Safari can be not fun for development. Alright, so if we do find Boba, it gives us the name, the number of reviews, and the rating. If I hit on the name, it takes me to the Yelp page of that business. Alright, so what's the next thing? Let's go back to the code. So now we have the horizontal stack done, and now the location, right? Location is going to be below the horizontal stack. It's going to be another text that's going to be slightly smaller. So we're going to put the font size as 2XL. And then it's going to be again in Boba info. It's going to be in location. And then within the location, we're going to just take the address 1. All right, so this should be the address done. And what else do we need? We need the 3 images at the bottom, right? So this is how it's looking with the address, and then I need the 3 images, which are going to be below the address. So below the address, we can have another H stack because the 3 images are side by side. Then we're going to have 3 image over here. 1, 2, 3. Now, where are the images? Let's look at our Postman data. So this is what's coming from our backend. So you see we had location and then address 1. So we have photos, and the photos is an array of 3 URL, so 3 strings. So we could literally just have 3 index 0, index 1, index 3 on our front end. So let's do that. So for the image, we could have the source set to Boba info. It's gonna be in photos. It's gonna be 0. Let's copy that and then do it for the other 2. So 0, 1, and 2. And some other just basic one. So the sizes, let's just put it as 210 pixel. And then similarly, just some aspect ratio stuff. We're gonna put it to cover. And let's just copy these 2 and put them in the other image text too. There you go. And there you go. All right, so we have 3 images. We want them to be spaced equally. So let's put some padding on the horizontal stack. And let's give it some spacing of 16. All right, and now let's see what we have. All right, so we are on localhost 3000. Let me refresh. We have our initial screen. When we hit find Boba, we get IT, the name, which is a clickable link, taking us to Yelp's IT page. We have the number of reviews, rating, address, and then 3 photos. If we keep on hitting it, so just I'm gonna bring back our backend that we're running. There you go. So see over here, just keep an eye on this. If I hit find Boba, we found a new one. You see another 200 coming from here. Another, and we get another request over here. So we have a locally working full stack application built. We have the front end that's all in React and Chakra JS, which is the front end framework we're using. And we have our back end running with Python Flask. And yeah, there you go. So one last time, here it is. We had find Boba. We have our restaurant here, and then you can keep on browsing through them just by hitting the button. There you go. All right, so that's all for today, folks. Thanks for staying till the end if you're still here. If you have any questions, just leave them in the chat below and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. With that being said, I will catch you all in the next one. Bye-bye.